Give me money.
What is up, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Ain't It Funky podcast. My guest today is Louis Giannamore. Louis is a jack of many trades. He's a drummer, percussionist, keyboard player, producer, and film scorer. Louis has played for the City Is Ours, Loathe, Fair Hazel, and currently plays for Gang of Youths, and very soon also for Arlo Parks. So he's played for loads of different acts. He's toured all over the world, played multiple instruments in different projects, and as you can imagine, our conversation was quite fascinating as Louis shared his amazing perspective from all of his experience in the industry. In our conversation, Louis shared valuable insight for up-and-coming musicians. He told me about the time he played on Jimmy Fallon with Gang of Youths, how he goes about composing music for film, and more. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe wherever you're listening. The video version is available on YouTube as well. Thanks for tuning in, and enjoy. All right, Louis Giannamore, welcome into the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Appreciate you being here, man. So Louis, take me back to the beginning of what got you into music, what got you into drumming originally. I know that you said before that like Sum 41 and Slipknot were big influences on you, but what was like the thing that got the hook in initially?
Both those bands were like when I was like 10, those are my favorite bands. Slipknot less. I started getting into music when I was like maybe like 8 or 9, like passionately. I had my dad's iPod Classic at the time, and he had fuck tons of stuff. He had so much music on there, and I knew nothing about music. I was just flipping through his iPod, just picking out random things I liked. One of the big sort of names for me that I found on there was Linkin Park. He had all the Linkin Park discography just on there, and I would just listen to Linkin Park on repeat. Sum 41 was on there. Found Metallica on there. Found all the classic rock. I got into Slipknot when I was like in my teens, and from a lot of that music I really loved growing up, they're probably the one I still really like. Like I sadly cannot remember the last time I've listened to Sum 41 or Linkin Park, but Slipknot, the drumming is just fucking cool. Like, and I look up to Joey not just as a drummer, just as like a creative, as a songwriter, just purely from a passion and drive perspective. My mom had quite a big music taste as well. They're both music nerds. My dad more so. My first instrument I did when I was, believe it or not, when I was 6 years old, and it was violin. That was my first instrument. Wow. Because I went to a really uniform, like traditional kind of conservative primary school, and you were forced to play an instrument, and from the selection it was mostly classical based instruments. So violin was actually my first instrument when I was literally like 6 years old. Then it was trumpet around maybe the year after, I guess, when I was 7, the way I think about it. And then I had a neighbor. I wasn't living with my parents in London at the time. I was living in Surrey. And we had a neighbor who, when I was about, I say, 8 years old, he must have been like 18. And I'd see him playing drums. His band would come over and practice, and I would just be there in the corner just watching them. And I was like, whoa, drums are cool. And begged my dad, didn't beg, but, asked him, be like, oh, Daddy, I'd love to try out drums. And he just bought me like cheapest fucking drum set from somewhere. Absolute terrible kit. I mean, I had that kit for like 5 years. I beat the shit out of it. But he bought me a kit. Came with like like the cheap beginner cymbals that most kits come with. Like came with a bunch of those. Oh, they were great. And started learning Sum 41 on it. Learned Metallica on it. Learned Linkin Park on it. All the great, sort of rock metal bands. So that's kind of how I got into it, really. And then, time moves on, your music taste changes. You have different inspirations. You have different goals in music. But yeah, at the beginning, it was really just like lots of like rock and metal that got me into drums as well as into music.
Right. And I know that you obviously you're really into like production and composing even. Um, was it then? At what point did you get into that side of things?
That wasn't until college. Um, and I showed up to college when I was 18. Went to college from 18 until 20, and I was super naive. I was just like, I want to play drums all day, I want to tour, I want to be in a band, I want to do sessions, whatever. But the education that I was doing, they sort of stopped me in my tracks and were like, no, no, no. We're going to teach you how to be a proper musician, how to, read music, how to write music, how to play other genres. And when I was like dabbling and trying out all this other stuff, on top of that, because they were trying to teach music theory to the students, they would essentially almost force feed piano to you because it's such a useful instrument when it comes to learning theory, understanding how harmony works. And through that, sort of figured out how music theory worked. And that was the first time I ever like understood how music theory or harmony or even a piano, a melodic instrument, worked. So the moment I discovered that was like, oh, writing songs is cool. Oh, harmony is cool. And that's when I got into sort of composing. And it was around that time in college where I was learning how to use Ableton, getting into MIDI controllers, getting into synths, and started discovering way more music just from playing less drums and actually playing more piano and doing more harmony and melodic based stuff. So it was through that I started getting into composing and writing music and writing pieces of music that weren't so percussive led, essentially. So yeah, it was a hard 2 years at college, but if anything, I got to thank it for where I am now. So especially in the composing side of things.
Yeah, because you went to Berkeley, right?
That's right. Went to Berkeley, and I dropped out like a lot of other people did. Course was 4 years, and
Okay.
I dropped out after two. Yeah.
So what led you to drop out? Was that because you got a professional gig, or was it
Um,
the
I re-
funds, or what was the?
I repeat, I was very naive. I was just like, I just don't want to be here. I want to get out into the real world, and I want to just
Right.
like sink my teeth into, you know, the industry. Like, you can stay in school for as long as you want, but you're never going to use those skills until you go out into the world. I repeat, like I was young, and I don't think I was very mature at that age. I mean, I was 19, right? Who is? But and
Yeah.
I'm gonna be 100% just blunt and transparent as well. Besides just being quite naive, I was also very depressed. I was just like, I'm not enjoying myself here. It's a lot of money, and I'm not. I'm going day by day, just not enjoying myself. Had great friends. When it came
Right.
to the teachers I was working with, I'd studied with some amazing drum professors, and that bit I will always fucking cherish. But I was down. I was low. I
Right.
wasn't good, and I was just like, I need to get out of here. And that's when I was 20, and came straight back to London. So yeah.
Okay. But did that come from like what was it like the culture shock of going from London um to Boston, or what like brought on, you said you were depressed, what brought that on, or was it just because it was all too much, it was too demanding, or
I found it very demanding. Culture shock. I personally didn't experience any
Hmm.
of. I've been my half
Okay.
of my family is American, so I'd been to the States before as a kid. I've got loads of family in the States that I'm very close with. Culture shock. I loved living in Boston. It was great, and
Right.
I do not regret any of my time at Berkeley. There's a few classes I didn't like, but I don't regret any of it. But it was demanding, and they have
Hmm.
their methods of pumping out quality musicians. Um, and for some people it was demanding. Some people got on fine. Um, but I found it really really tough. I showed up. I don't think I played drums for like the first 2 weeks. I was too busy trying to learn how to write
Oh,
a C major chord on a lead sheet.
oh
um,
wow.
but the way I've described it to people is, you know, in context of drumming, this could be used in any sort of context, but like the passion that you work at your whole life as a kid, like you're getting better at it, play drums, you're playing loads in your free time when you're in a band or whatever, you're improving throughout your life. So I started around when I was 8. So the entire time from 8 to about 18 was just, a nice little rise and progression. By the time I got to Berkeley, it was like a huge step up. And then now I feel it's doing this again. I feel like the moment I showed up at Berkeley was actually like, oh wow, I'm actually like in this pool of incredible musicians. The professors are amazing, and they're musicians too. Like they get it, and that sort of music education, especially in America where tuition costs a lot, but different other places doesn't matter. But really good music education didn't exist 40 years ago. You just went down to the local bar and hope you met some new musicians. But to be in that pool of amazing musicianship in Boston with other people who were young and equally as hungry, that was an amazing environment to be in. So, but like in the first 4 months I was there, after the first semester, I understood a lot of music theory. So as much as they crack the whip on you, in my opinion, I think it works. Everyone will give you different opinions of music education and music school and how you could use that in the real world. My opinion is that it for me at least, going to music college, going to Berkeley did help me hugely. But if I'd stayed those extra 2 years, maybe I would have, well, not maybe, I definitely would have learned a lot more. But my choice at the time was to, I'm going to take what I've had out of impatience as well, go out into the real world and use it a bit.
Yeah, for sure. You don't want to become a forever student. But as you say, I suppose being at Berkeley, you can't help but progress, because you obviously mentioned that when you got to Berkeley, you did actually, despite the hardships, you did actually do like a big step up in progression. Because I guess it's like they say about your environment in general. You become your environment, right?
Yeah.
And I guess if you're hanging around that much inspiration and that much like insane musicianship and obviously world-class tutors, and you can't help but also feel in yourself driven to get better and to progress, and to, you see everyone else doing it, and then you become that. But I can't imagine that. Yeah, it's very demanding, and I mean, maybe I suppose not quite like Whiplash level, where it's like J.K. Simmons screaming and hurling chairs across the room. But
if I had a dollar,
did you find some tutors that were quite strict? Did you have any like Whiplash moments?
I had no Whiplash moments. I was about to say, like, man, if I had a dollar for every stranger I've met, and like, oh, what do you do? I was like, oh, I'm a drummer. Oh, music school. You get into like a nice conversation. And they're like, oh, how much of it is like Whiplash? I'm like, none of it's like Whiplash. That's torture. But, you're a product of your environment. You always will be. And even though I showed up and I struggled, I was still, I like to think 18-year-old me was still very open-minded and was like, I want to get better. So I still I barely ever skipped class, only when I was like ill and stuff, whatever. Barely ever skipped class, always showed up. I did good. My grades were all right. And I was still like really passionate about like learning and becoming a good drummer. Some of the drum teachers I had, one name in particular, which really struck out to me, still does, was a guy called Dave DeCenzo. Fucking hell, he's good. I mean, he's a professor.
Oh yeah, amazing. Yeah, my God, yeah.
He's unbelievable. So I took a few. I studied with him for quite a lot of my time there. Actually, I had quite a few different drum teachers, but out of all the drum teachers I worked with there or studied under there, he definitely just he was covering all the ground of stuff I wanted to learn. The first ever thing I did from him was a double pedal lab, which was like Which
Nice.
some of his teachings from the 4 months of doing that double pedal lab, I still think about now. Then I took some private tuition with him, which was just amazing. And he's an awesome guy. He's awesome. I mean, there's no point talking about how good of a drummer he is because he's just incredible. But as a teacher, as a sheer motivator, he's just incredible. And if there's anything he taught me, which I use so importantly now, is that a real word?
Yeah.
But is posture, and just overall positioning and wrist motion, especially when it came to double pedal, because when you're sitting down, but your feet are still, tap dancing, it's like, how the fuck does that work? So knowing how to use your body efficiently and knowing how to use it to the best of its limits, your arm can't bend that way, but how can you use your body efficiently to what its limits are, and essentially,
Right.
it's like, is it Tesco's Every Little Helps? It is Tesco that does that. It's like, how can all your muscles do the same thing? Every little helps.
Yeah.
How can all your muscles put in
Yeah.
that 50 cents to all bring the best outcome in your drumming? And I think thanks to those teachings is why I've barely ever experienced any pain behind the drum set, which a lot of drummers do.
Right.
Well, I have experienced pain, but I've been good at learning from that and finding a new method and overall looking after my body when we play such a physical instrument. So no whiplash moments, but as far as like quite disciplined teaching, he gave me that, but it was amazing. Some other drummers I studied under, Mark Walker. I studied with him because he is an amazing Latin drummer. Well, he can do anything, but his speciality is Latin drumming. He's amazing. A guy called bollocks, what's his name? Marko Djordjevic. He's got he's very jazzy, but he has a real attitude to his playing. He was great. Really lovely too. I learned a lot from him. Who else did I study with? I could be here forever. It's been a while since I've actually thought about this, but those three names, mainly Dave DiCenzo, are some of the reasons why I'm able to kind of keep doing this. But yeah, absolute big shout out to Dave DiCenzo, because man, he was just such an inspiration to me.
Yeah, he's a sick guy for sure. I remember years ago watching his Drumeo video, and there's like a inverted six-stroke roll chop. I don't know if you know which one I'm talking about, where like, it's the inverted six-stroke roll, and you add like a kick on like the fifth beat, and it's just this super sick. I remember when I picked it up, and I picked it up really quickly, and dude, since then that's been like one of my go-to chops.
Yeah.
And that literally came from Dave DiCenzo from his Drumeo video. And as you say, he comes across, obviously, I haven't met him in real life, but he comes across as such a cool guy on the video. He comes across as like so passionate, and like just his energy is contagious, man.
Dude, that Drumeo video, like the way he's so just like, he's like that fun uncle. He's just so awesome. He's so passionate. He's so into it. That's exactly what his private tuition is like. He's just awesome.
Sick.
And he's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
Somewhere up there, right where all those little books are. Somewhere in there is his book as well, which I got when I was at Berkeley.
Oh, sick.
Guilty as charged. I haven't touched it in a while, but it's there. It's
sick. Yeah. Yeah, amazing, man. Yeah, he reminds me of Dom Familaro. He's like a younger version of Dom Familaro. Obviously rest his soul.
Yeah,
man.
But he was awesome.
Yes,
he
just
was so good.
that passion for teaching and for drumming, and yeah, man.
Absolutely.
So moving on to after Berkeley. So when you moved back to London, I think did you join Gang of Youths after that? Was it the first group that you got into? What was like the first then professional gig that you found your way into, and how did that come about?
As far as my first professional gig, it was Gang of Youths. Like the first big one, it was like, you're coming with us, like a hired gun for everything. But came back to London, got a normal job for starters, But I was in a band for 3 years from Essex called The City Is Ours. I was in them for about 3 years, up until about COVID.
Right.
So from like 2017 until COVID, I was with them. And with the band, I also did lots of session work on the side. And how I got a lot of that session work was just from being around other people in London. There's no real trick into how you get into the session world other than just, hustle, meet people, go to jams, go to live music, meet people, all that. So I was in the band, but I was also doing that in London. COVID comes, everything falls apart. And it was after COVID where I got the Gang of You's gig. And that essentially, without sounding cheesy, changed my life. They released an album at the start of 2022 and they needed a session guy. And I had the rhythmic skills. They wanted a percussionist. It wasn't even for drums. They needed a percussionist.
Right.
And they found out as well that I had some keys skills. So for a whole year, I barely played drums. I was just doing shakers and timbales and keys and synths. But those guys are great.
Sick.
Gang of You's are, I mean, in the studio, because they're buddies of mine, and I was buddies with them before they asked me to come along. God, man, they're such talented musicians. They're so good. They can all play everything. It's like all 5 of them can do every instrument. So they're just like, so showing up. I was the youngest out of all of them as well. Showing up on tour and just, it's kind of like these 5 giants staring down at you. I'm like, oh my God, this is scary. Like, but yeah, Gang of You sort of enveloped my whole life in 2022. It was like 9 months, whereas like that's basically all I did.
Sick, man. And then, so you said it was 9 months in 2022?
More or less. There was one session at the end of 2021 that I did with them, which was the first thing I did with them. And that's when we were sort of chatting and discussing, just hanging out to like, oh, what the next year is going to be like. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to get the album out in February, and then we're just going to tour. And we started doing like a few little bits of promo in February, and then March was the first tour. And then the last tour of 2022, it was literally just in November. So, yeah, come to think of it, was actually just 9 months of 9, 10.
Wow, man. And whereabouts did you guys all go?
We did pretty much like the big 4, all the Western places. So like England, Europe, America, Australia. And they were an Australian band. They started out in Australia, but they all moved as a unit to the UK. Which is how I know them, of course, from just being in London.
Right.
The first ever tour that I did with them was March 2022, which was just around the UK, but yeah, it was awesome.
Right.
It was the first time I ever performed not sitting down. So like, cause drummers were sitting down, and whatnot, and it was the first time I ever had to use my legs, like in a showmanship manner. I was like, okay, drummers use our whole bodies when we perform, but half the time we only see from waist up. But I was like, what do I do with my feet? Like, how do I look cool on stage? so it was a lot of that. But yeah, that first show I did with them was, where was it? It was Dublin. It was awesome. Yeah, that was an awesome show. I remember it super well.
Nice.
But yeah, it was it was the UK, it was America. Festival season around Europe. Then they had a really big run in Australia in August of that same year. And then there was a tour cancelled, which was meant to be back in America, but I think we all kind of wanted the time off. And then we had, at the time at least, it was a busy year, and up at that point, we were like, oh God. But then there was another European run at the end of that year, which was like October, November. So yeah.
Right. And so was that like the first big tour that you done?
Essentially, yeah. And like with my old band, we did quite a lot of touring. And with some of the other sessions I was doing, I had the very grateful opportunity to be able to do some traveling with that as well. So there was this singer-songwriter that I work with, worked with more than I like to say I still work with him. Like there was never any sort of cutoff point. But this singer-songwriter called Hazel, who now lives in America. He's originally from London, but we did quite a bit of traveling. We did a few festivals in the States, did quite a lot of festivals around all over England. Small, nice, but great little shows. And it was an interesting contrast because I had my old band, which was a metal band. So, big breakdowns and double pedal. And then with him, I was tapping. It was great. I loved it.
Right.
But, and then, yeah, Gang of Youth showed up and essentially just, my experience touring was like this, and then it just shot up with them.
Sick, yeah. And then how did you make your way into Loathe? Because I know you played some stuff with Loathe. How did that come about then?
They asked me. Simply put, I had met a few of the guys from Loathe just from sort of being around. Because my old band, The City Is Ours, they were sort of in the same circle as Loathe, and Loathe, they're huge now, obviously. Below that time, they were smaller, they were humble, they had their roots. But I met one of the guys from Loathe, just like at a show, started chatting. And, people scroll on Instagram, people see what each other are up to. And I eventually started talking a lot with Eric from Loathe, just on Instagram, just, talking about music, liking each other's posts and whatnot. And yeah, just last summer, they were like, we need a guy to fill in. Sean can't do it. Sean is, for anyone watching, Sean is the drummer for Loathe. And they just called me up and were like, we need someone to fill in. We think you're good. I'm like, because Loathe are a band that I fucking love. So the fact that they asked me, I was like, yeah, yes, I will. And like quite simply put, filling in for them was a fucking dream come true. I don't want to sound like an old man, but I do feel like I can be quite picky with my taste in music now, especially when it comes to the heavier side of it. I grew up listening to so much of it, and now I feel that like my palette is so saturated with so much of that music. If I want to listen to it now, I'm like, it's got to really either just strike a chord, or for me, it has to be like the most fresh, unheard thing. And for me, Loathe is like top tier. Like, I remember like seeing their music videos on the internet, and it took me a while to sort of like understand what I was watching and listening. And eventually, I was like, oh wait, I get it, and it was like total fandom since then. So the fact that they asked me, I was like, at the time I was like speechless. Texted my girlfriend, I was like, like I was so And the shows were awesome. The shows were great. The shows were super fun. And now I'm even more grateful to call them buddies. Even more grateful to call them friends. Yeah, can't complain.
Sick, man. That is so sick, man. Awesome. Yeah. And because you mentioned that like you chatted to one of them, and then you had him on Instagram, and you were you're DMing, I guess, on Instagram. And I know you've said in a previous interview the importance of networking, which may sound obvious to some people, but I feel like a lot of the time it's easy for people to focus more on skills and like sitting in the practice room for hours and hours, rather than like the networking side, which is actually, and it sounds like a cliche, and it is, but it's not what you know, it really is who you know. And so tell me a bit more about moments in your life where you've actively maybe seeked networking, if that makes sense, or where you where you've met people, and how maybe certain connections have come about and snowballed from there. And just tell me a bit more about that.
Being good at your craft is mandatory. Like that should be expected. It's like you shouldn't have to. Well, yeah, you should have to prove yourself that you're good, but if someone's going to hire you, it's already based on the fact that you are good at your craft. Like that's irrelevant. But it's like, oh, we need you on tour for 9 months. It's like they're not gonna hire a dick. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
They want someone who's obviously got a great work ethic and who is good at their craft, but like, especially like, you're literally on tour right now. You're doing this from a hotel room. Like, you want to be able to hang out with these people, and it's like, do you get along? Can you talk about other stuff and not just like music is fun. We all do it for the sheer passion of it, but sometimes you just want to talk about, I don't know, did you see that match last night? Oh, have you tried this new IPA? Like, just random stuff. You want to be able to hang out with these people. Like, I mean, Loathe is a good Loathe is a good example, because I met one of the guys just at a show. He was taking pictures, and I was like, oh, you're the guy from Loathe, and we just started chatting, and he was nice. You know, being nice is being professional.
Yeah.
The same way I met the guys in Gang of Youths. Like, I met the singer for the first time in summer of 2019, and it was through a mutual the singer-songwriter I was playing with at the time, Fair Hazel. He knew a guy. We knew a guy who knew him, so we all hung out, and that's how we met. And then I kept in contact with him, realized we had such similar music tastes, just hung out, and never expected anything from him. And then, what is it, like, 3 years later, they're like, we need a percussionist. So sometimes, like, I never expected either to fill in for Loathe either. I was like, they're this awesome band that I'm realizing from a distance, and then he just rung me, just called me, and we're like, we need someone to fill in. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. You'll make friends naturally by just being yourself and just being a cool hang. But then, like, there's someone who may need you on a professional standpoint 3 years from then, and that 3 years from then could be touring for 9 months 9 months of a year with Gang of Youths. That's my take on it, I guess. As far as situations where I've met this person and it stemmed onto something else. But even when I dropped out of college, I went to shows, I went to random events to try and meet people. Some people I'm still friends with now and have worked with too. Some people I follow online, but they're just there, and we don't necessarily communicate, or we're in different worlds, or we do communicate, or just the time hasn't come yet, per se.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more about being a good human being, a good hang, and as you say, not being like opportunistic, where it's maybe you see a person you look up to, like you saw the guy from Loathe, and it's not like you're actively then thinking in that moment, oh, what can I get from this person? How can I how can I weave my way in to, like, maybe I could be the drummer? Like, it's more like, I admire this person. Let's first connect on a human level, right? And actually just be genuine. That's the main thing. Because people can smell that shit from a mile away. If you are going in there I love how it's giving me a thumbs up now. But if people can smell from a mile away if you're trying to extract something for personal gain from a exchange, right? Rather than like you're just trying to like speak to this person, and as you say, maybe you don't even, maybe it's not even music based, the conversation, maybe it's talking about football or movies, or I mean, I've spoken to people that I've looked up to where literally sometimes the conversation is just 2 hours of talking shop about drums, and then sometimes it's genuinely like you're talking about your movie taste, or you're talking about whatever, and so I think it really is just a matter of taking away from what you were saying. It's just be a good person, a good hang, and don't expect just because you've had a good exchange with someone to then a week later you get the phone call. Maybe you'll never get the phone call, but at least you'll have made a good contact that either will recommend you to someone, or as you say, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, it's like I think of Gabe Helguera, right? You know, from Drum Beats Online, Gabe Helguera from I
Oh
Prevail.
yes, yes, yes.
He's a perfect example where he said in a video of his, he used to make a point of playing every gig he could get, whatever style it might be, uploading crazy amounts of videos, speaking to people, just giving people his card, being like, hey man, you know, like, let's connect. Let's, you know, whether it's on social media, whether it's through, a business card, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And he said himself, it took about a year, and some dude where he played a church gig, the sound guy from that church gig, thought of him and thought, hey, there was that cool guy that I met a year ago. Let me call Gabe up and ask him if he wants to audition for I Prevail. So it literally is just like, it's just a matter of being a cool person, making an impression that you're just a genuine, you know, and being positive, I guess, is, you know, is also, mindset is a big thing. Having a positive attitude in general. And yeah, man.
Don't get me wrong. I've also done bad networking. I'm 100% guilty of that, where you're like, yeah, my name's Louis, I'm a drummer, blah, 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 and you just like totally. It's such a funny. It's more psychological than it is physical. It's like the way, you know, people interact. Like, there's no right answer to this, right? Everyone's different, but there 100% have been times where I've been terrible in a social situation, and like, you know, like I'm 100% guilty of not being a cool hang as well. I like to think I am, you know, social guy, but but the further and further you get into music or any industry, the more you realize it's just the web. Just, you all know each other. Oh yeah, him, and I know them. Yeah, he's a cool guy. And it's like people talk. Word of mouth is deceptively powerful. So, keep that in mind. And, you know,
for
like
sure,
I said,
man.
I haven't been perfect as well.
Yeah. I'm same, man. Absolutely been guilty. You know, I mean, I'm sober now, but I used to drink a lot. And in those days I'd go out and, you know, I look back and I think there would have been gigs or certain situations where it would have been a perfect opportunity for me to, you know, maybe make that connection with somebody who's actually really renowned in the industry. But I'd come off stage and I would just, you know, want to get wasted. And that was all it was about back in the day for me. And I look back on that and I go, dude, maybe my music career could have been so much further back then already if I would have just like taken it a little more seriously and just not made the impression on people that like, oh God, you know, that Harry guy, you know, that drummer of that band, he look at him at the bar. He's just all about, you know, partying and getting wasted. He's not going to be a reliable guy to call. So I know exactly what you mean with the bad networking.
Especially when it comes to touring, it's so easy to just drink every day. Not necessarily get wasted, but just like it's so easy to have, I'll have a beer before the show and a beer after, and 3 weeks later you just feel like a slug. It's like it's just like half the team of Loathe don't drink or drink very little. So that was such a sober time. I was only with them for like 3 months, but it was such a nice sober time where we come off stage and we're like, oh, we're gonna have some water. This is great, you know. It was so wholesome, and I think like 3 months I was with them, like collectively, like 8 beers, like that's nothing. But yeah, touring, you know, booze can go a long way. But yeah, networking as such. I have a story as well where I met a fairly prolific name in the jazz world, and I think I had a bit too much to drink, and I think he was just a fucker. Like, but yeah, we can talk about that another time.
It's easy, man. It's, you know, in the music industry, it's too easy to indulge in, you know, alcohol and drugs. And I mean, when you see it time and time again, people get carried away, and sadly, careers get ruined over. I mean, that's the whole reason I quit drinking a few years ago, because like I just realized it was, you know, it was not going to end well for me. I was not going to be getting callbacks from people. My whole, music is like the most important thing in my entire life. Well, obviously apart from family and friends,
Yeah.
that you can't, that obviously goes without saying, but music is just like the air I breathe. And it's just always been my dream to tour the world, to play drums, to make music, to make those connections with other like-minded people. And I saw that it was like not gonna go where I wanted it to go if I kept up this habit of constantly just binge drinking. And
Yeah.
so yeah, man, but it's too easy, as I say. Yeah.
I mean, well done you. Like getting off alcohol
Thank
is
you, man.
tough.
Thank you.
So congrats.
For sure. Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man.
I just
appreciate
like
it
too much.
Appreciate it. I know the feeling. Craft beer used to be my gig, man. I used to work in a beer shop and drink on the job, and yeah, man.
All right. All jokes, but seriously though, well done.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. But yeah, so dude, I wanted to ask you about. I saw that you played with Gang of Youths. You guys played on Jimmy Fallon.
We did.
That is sick. Tell me about that experience.
So I was on keys for that, and I only found out about it, I think, like a week before. Like, when you book a tour, you book it like months in advance. And I was like, okay, we're going to be in the States, April and May. And I only found out a week before. I saw that we were flying to New York, and we had like 5 days in there. And I'm like, what the hell are we doing in New York for 5 days? When our first show of that tour was in Wisconsin. I was like, what the hell are we doing? And then they're like, yeah, we got some promo, we're doing Jimmy Fallon, we're doing CBS News. I'm like, excuse me? Like, no one told me. And yeah, so it was awesome. It was super fun. It was great. It was, you're there super early in the morning, setting up, sound checking, whatever. And then you have until like, so sound check's like 9 a.m. Then you have until like 3 p.m. to do whatever you want. Go home or back to the hotel, go get lunch, go for a walk, whatever. But they require you, at least, thousands of musicians have been on Fallon. But in my case, it was like they wanted us to be there at 3 p.m. for the airing of tonight's show. So, there's no rush, let's say, like the trains are delayed or whatever. You get so amped to play one song, and then you've got all this adrenaline, and then suddenly everyone's clapping, and Jimmy Fallon's like, thanks everyone for coming, and you're just like, all this adrenaline, and you're like, okay. And then we watch the Roots finish the show, or close the show, and those 30 seconds of music is just amazing. They're just so, like, they play the simplest stuff, but it's just like, like, all 6 of us are on stage just like watching them like, oh my god, like, these guys are the best. And
the Roots, man, legends.
The Roots, man, like, yeah, Jimmy Fallon was an incredible experience. And it was fairly recent in my time with Gang of Youths, so it was such a magical moment. Like, holy shit, American talk shows. So yeah, that was
when was it?
March 2022. No, April 2022.
April 2022. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I was.
And did you? Sorry.
I was just gonna say it was on keys as well.
Go on.
It wasn't. No, it was on keys, not drums. Just wanted to say.
Okay. And did you get to meet Questlove?
Walked past him, which was very overwhelming, but I didn't get to meet him. I would have loved to, but he was busy being cool,
Yeah, man. He's one of the coolest cats out there, dude. His feel is crazy good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But did you meet Jimmy?
We didn't. We when the show closes, he goes and shakes the hands of all the musicians on stage. But no, we didn't meet him. He wasn't around that day. For reasons unbeknownst to me. Would have been awesome though. Don't get me wrong. But no. Sadly.
Yeah. Wow, man. Yeah, but that's a big deal, man. Playing Jimmy Fallon. That's I can't even imagine. You said the adrenaline was pumping. I can't even imagine how that felt.
Oh, it was cool. It was cool. My dad was in the crowd as well by chance. My dad was visiting
Wow.
he was visiting our family in the States, and he had booked that like ages before like this tour was booked. And I was like, Dad, come to Jimmy Fallon. So got to hang out with the old man in New York, which was cool. But yeah,
Wow, man, that's awesome. So what did you guys do in New York hanging out?
what do we do? Went to some bars. Just I don't know. I have a few friends in New York. Saw them. It was nice.
Nice.
Um, yeah, was it? I say it was like 5 days in New York. It might have been less. We just hung out. So we did Fallon. And it's CBS News or CBS
Nice.
Saturday morning, something like that. Fact check me. It's online. Go find it. CBS. Then there was something else. Was there something else? I think they had their own bit of promo.
Yeah.
And I was just, oh, I remember now. We went to go see Wilco. That was amazing. Do you know the band
Oh,
Wilco?
nice. Okay, yeah. Yes, what's the big songs? What are their big hits?
I don't even know. But we went to go see Wilco, and they were fucking amazing.
Oh, okay.
They were
Okay, yeah.
They were playing in New York that night, and they were playing the entirety. I sound super excited. The reason I know of Wilco was because all the guys in gang love Wilco, and I was like, "Who the hell's
Okay.
Wilco?" And they were like, "Louis, we're about to change your life. Go see Wilco," and they were playing the entirety of their album, Yankee Foxtrot Hotel or Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
Okay.
It's definitely starts with Yankee. That's that much I know.
Yeah.
And it was so good. It was so good.
Sick.
And since then, Wilco's drummer has been like quite a his name's Glenn Kochi, and just watching it, he's got such a creative mind. Like he's a drummer, but he's clearly got some just general musicianship behind him. Like performs with loads of little bells and bits of percussion. Amazing feel. But yeah, we went to go see Wilco in New York, which is really cool. Play the entirety of that album, and I'd say I'm pretty fucking spoiled to be introduced to such an incredible band that I'd never heard of, and see them do that. It's just like, whoa. We just hung out. There's this great bar in New York called McSorley's. It's
McSorley's.
like when I say Irish pub, I mean it's like offensively Irish. It was like the Irish pub. Smells like an antique shop. It's old as who knows. But you walk inside. You can't see the actual wall. It's just covered by old frames and old pictures of Irish immigrants coming to New York, and like traditional Irish culture, just full stop. They don't take card. There's only 2 beers on tap, and there's no names for them. It's just light or dark. You buy a pint, and it comes in 2 half pints. So if you order like 5 pints, it's like 10 glasses, and they carry them all to the table and like slam them down. And like you have to pay in cash, so it's like if you don't have cash, you're fucked, and you're gonna get beat up by some Irishmen. So it's like, but like they'll give you like some cheese and crackers as well, and it's like it's not sugar coated. It's just like, here's a packet of crackers, here's some basic cheddar. Enjoy yourself, or like don't enjoy yourself, because it's like, but it's just like, because it's so just bare bones. Also, one really cool bit about it is that there's loads of some, whether there's any historians watching this, fact check me, but it was like a thing in old pubs where they would sprinkle sawdust all on the ground to soak up any spilt drinks. Don't know if that's true or not, but they do that. So you walk in and it's just full of sawdust on the ground. And like, this pub sounds like the dingiest place ever, but it's amazing. And it's right in the middle of Manhattan, which is like the nicest place in the world.
Yeah, man, it's sick.
Great pub. So I went there with my dad. I was just like, this is great. Went there with the whole band and my dad and like the crews. So that was great. That was a great time. yeah, still chatting about those 5 odd days we had in New York, but yeah, go
Yeah,
there.
New York is such an. I understand where you're coming from with like talking a lot about New York, because New York is just such a fascinating place. It's almost like even if you had 2 months there, you wouldn't be able to see everything you want to see. It's New York is an out of body experience when you first go there. That's for sure.
Yeah, amazing city for sure.
Yeah, but tell me about your production side of things, your scoring. What I know you've scored for a bunch of movies. Like, what kind of projects, have you done? Tell me more about that side of things.
Scoring is a hard world to get into. And when I did drop out of Berkeley, I was kind of I think if I were to sort of think back and try and remember how I was thinking then, I was almost ready to like put drums on the sideline and like fully go for scoring. I'm thankful I'm still doing both now. But I was really lucky, really fucking lucky to have scored my first feature last year. That was amazing. And it was a huge, huge learning curve. I've done lots of shorts. I've done lots of really, really awesome shorts. I want to throw in a little shout out to one of them I got to work on called Vibrator Girl. Sounds just as weird as the title seems, but the director is a woman called Zoe, who's also the main actress in it. She's a great friend of mine. She's awesome. She's lovely. And directors, when it comes to scoring, generally have a certain vision. Half the time they don't know how to express themselves musically. That's where the composer comes in. So the composer's got to take one person's vision and channel it through you and somehow express yourself through that. But Zoe was great. She was just like, we have this idea, but Louis, we trust you. Just go do your thing. And I was really grateful to see that premiered and got to be like, it didn't really, like, when I found out I was going to be premiered at South by Southwest, none other than, which was incredible. I was like, wow. Okay, cool. South by Southwest, like, that's neat. And I only did it really sink in while I was sat in the movie theater. I'm like, like having to hear I'm sure it's probably the same for all the actors and the crew of the movie and the director, like seeing their vision on the big screen. But for me, hearing my music on the big screen before was just like like you feel sick. Oh God. But I consider myself like extremely lucky to have been able to do drums and do composing too.
Right.
There's lots of drummers who do it, but the biggest example being Stuart Copeland, none other.
Right. Yeah.
I know Alon Rubin does a bit of that as well. What's his name? Eli Kessler. He's like
Eli Casagrande?
No, not him. He's called Eli Kessler. Okay. It sounds quite Eloy Casagrande, Eli Kessler.
Okay.
Is that how I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Eli, something like that. But he's nonetheless, he's a drummer who also composes. So it's a weird little niche that somehow exists. But doing my first feature last year was a massive blessing, and it showed up at a time where I wasn't on the road. It was right before Loathe happened, which was luck, really, actually. So I just stayed at home, worked on the music for essentially like 2 months. Usually the way it works with the general rule of thumb with film composing is, even though the music is such an integral role in the entire picture, that's often one of the last things added. Like, they'll give you the finished product. This is like general rule of thumb. There's lots of exceptions, but they'll give you the final picture, or at least a rough cut of the final picture. So off the bat, when I got to score this big feature last year, which was called Topper, directed by a guy called Kevin McNamara, he just off the bat just handed me the whole thing. I'm like, here's 2 hours of a movie with no music. Let's get to work, I guess,
Wow, yeah.
But it's cool. it's fun. I enjoy doing it, and I haven't got any scoring gigs on the plate as of yet. Like for this so far this year, only small ones, as in like just making short clips for whatever. Like, but as far as like actual products, nothing yet this year. But
Right.
it is. I'm saying this from quite a limited amount of experience in it. Obviously, been extremely lucky to have done quite a few shorts, and to have obviously done a feature. Like, I'm pretty lucky to say that.
Yeah.
I still am coming from the perspective of someone who actually maybe doesn't even know that much. So hopefully, touch wood, cross fingers, I can watch this podcast back in 5 years' time and be like, maybe I've done bigger stuff at that point. Let's hope so.
Yeah.
But I love messing around with synths. I'm a big fan of electronic music. I love ambient music. I love experimental music. So I like to think that's sort of my sound I wiggle through when it comes to the composing side of things. And same with just my own music. I don't even know if I'm answering your question other than just blabbering on. But yeah, with the shorts I've done, they've been awesome. Scoring for a feature was a massive learning curve. Onwards and upwards, really. Yeah.
Nice, man. And so when you're scoring, let's say you said that you get the 2-hour movie sent to you. Do you just have like free reign on? You sit down and you obviously can tell if the scene's sad or there's, I don't know, imminent danger, or it's like a really positive scene or whatever. Do you just get to like go ham on whatever sounds and kind of vibe you want, or does somebody give you maybe certain guidelines musically, if that makes sense, that you can add? How do you go about that like creative process of composing?
So it's the director's vision most of the time. So the director will, in this case, he was like, this is the feel we're going for. Most of the time they'll give you references. They're like, this is the kind of vibe we're going for. Here's a Spotify playlist. Here's some other inspirations. He gave me a list of movies to watch. I was like, this is kind of the feel we're going for, which in this case, the movie Topper was quite heavy. It was very dramatic, I guess. It was so short synopsis, it's about a depressed comedian. So the actual emotional content is quite heavy. So, stuff that really makes you feel sad. That general vibe. He sent me like a small playlist. He gave me some movie references. And I like to think that future me will look back on this score I did and be grateful that that was the first one I ever got to do, because I say musically, it was very simple. A lot of it was just piano. A lot of it was just synths and pads, like very minimal. There were a few sections with strings and like, lots of different synth layers and textures as well. But most of the time, most of the songs in that movie are just piano, which is cool because it was fun to actually like explore and like write on the piano. It was really fun. It was really, really fun. But most of the time, the director will come at you with a general vision and saying like, this is what we're feeling, this is what we're thinking, or the production team, full stop. So, and the director, Kevin, we had like a 4-hour Zoom call and we went through everything with the movie in front of us both. He was based in LA, so on Zoom, just talking about the whole thing. And he gave me all the timestamps, like music comes in here, rises, fades out by here, comes back in here, so on and so forth. So that was really helpful. So I just followed that. I just followed those guidelines. As far as like instrumentation, it was already sort of established that it was going to be very minimal, very simple. Love, just piano, melancholic, sad, heavy, those general moods. But when it comes to like what other layers to add, as long as it feels the way it's meant to feel, and as long as the audience gets that gut feeling, then I guess it doesn't really matter too much. And I repeat, I still consider myself a bit of a spring chicken in the whole industry of film scoring, but this is my understanding of it, at least. And don't get me wrong, there were times I set an idea to direct, and he was like, "Nah, no, this doesn't work." And he was like, "Oh, tweak this maybe a bit."
Right.
There were a few, slam dunks, be like off the bat, like, "Louis, we like that. That's a keeper." And you could work 3 days on the best piece of music you've ever written. It's you're writing it, and you're like, "This is a banger. This is the best thing I've ever written." You send it to the director, and he's like, "Nah." And you just got to put it straight in the bin and start again. So,
Yeah.
So that like, did it happen to me? Maybe. Regardless of the point, that's how it works. The film composer, and there are some of the biggest names in music are film composers, like John Williams or Bernard Herrmann or whoever. Hans Zimmer, for example.
Yeah.
The big
Legend,
names, right? At the end of the day, they're an employee. A director's coming to them to fill a vision, and they've got to do it. Obviously those 3 names I mentioned are like the absolute top tier exceptions, but there's lots of other small musicians out there who do score, and I have friends who do shorts as well, who are just normal musicians like we are. Being a film composer or a composer is obviously a title in the whole list of music services you can offer. In our case, it's like, oh, we're a drummer, or like a producer or songwriter. A composer is just another one of those, and that's on their I've got friends who do shorts or compose for commercials or ads or art galleries, so on and so forth. Yeah, and I consider myself quite lucky to be able to have done both drumming and the film composing side. And yeah, there are some people who do all strictly film composing. But
Yeah.
I think I'm sort of like diverging from what you originally asked, but like in today's world of music, it's hard to just be one thing. It's often at least maybe 4 or 5 half the time.
For sure.
In the professional
For
world,
sure.
at least. So yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It sounds fascinating for sure. And it's as you say, it's amazing that you get to do not just, playing for such awesome projects whether it's drums or percussion or keys.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're a jack of all trades. It sounds like it's amazing. But you also get to do the composing and the production and yeah, it sounds like you've definitely got a foothold in different. You kind of got your fingers in different pies, in the music world, which is awesome, man. So yeah, kudos to you, man, for doing all that. It's yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. I'm fucking lucky, man. I get to do all of them. So thanks.
So yeah, I feel like we could chat for like another hour, dude, but we're coming to the end of this episode. Is there anything that you want to plug? Any projects you want to shout out?
Let me think. Yeah, you know what? Two little things. I was very, very lucky as well to I worked with a band earlier this year that go by the name of Love Is Noise. They're all buddies of mine. Everyone in that whole crew are buddies of mine. I recorded drums for their record, which is coming out at some point, but also had quite a luxury to essentially co-produce it, help out with the songwriting. It's the first time I've ever done any sort of form of, being the producer, having like a say in the whole project as a whole. So I got to do that, which is really lucky. And later this summer, I've got some more touring coming up and playing with an artist I've never played with before. This artist called Arlo Parks, which will be awesome, which will be really, really fun. I know a few of the people on that team already. The bassist is a guy called Sam. Fucking lovely dude. We bond over like different kind of electronic music and like different experimental music. The drummer James, I'm filling in for him because he's got more important shit to do. I can't say he's got more important shit to do.
Okay.
But he asked me to fill in, which I was very grateful for. So that'll be my festival season, essentially
Sick.
Booked. So man, can't complain. I'm lucky. So yeah, those are 2 things that I can egotistically put out into the world. So, But yeah, man, just shout out to the dudes in Lovers Noise for letting me be a part of their album, which is really cool. Which touch wood will be out sooner than later.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, thank you for coming on. I appreciate your time, and hopefully we can do it again sometime. I feel like there's loads more to talk about.
Yeah, I feel that too. Dude, thank you for having me. And off camera, we were speaking, and we realized that we don't live too far away from each other. So, alcohol-free beers on me.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, we should definitely hang out when I'm back in the UK.
Totally.
Let's
All
make
right,
that happen.
enjoy the rest of the tour.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Give me money.